Hello, my friends. Welcome to American Lingo Academy. I'm Emily, and today we're going to learn another 10 common English phrasal verbs that native speakers use all the time. These phrasal verbs are very useful, and I promise, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what they mean and how to use them naturally in your own conversations. Now, before we start, I want you to remember something important. Phrasal verbs might seem tricky at first, but they're actually everywhere in everyday English. Once you learn them, you'll start hearing them in movies, in conversations with friends, and even in business meetings. So don't worry if they feel challenging right now. We're going to take it step by step, and I'll give you plenty of examples so you can really understand how to use each one. Let's jump right in with our first phrasal verb. Number 1, agree with. This means to have the same opinion as someone else or to think the same way about something. It's one of the most common ways we express that we share someone's thoughts or feelings. When you agree with someone, you're saying, "Yes, I think the same thing you do." For example, if your friend says, "I think this movie is really boring," and you feel the same way, you can say, "I totally agree with you." Here's another one. "I agree with my mom that we should eat more vegetables." See how natural that sounds? You're showing that you and your mom have the same opinion about healthy eating. Number 2, aim at. This has two main meanings. The first is the literal meaning, which is to point something at a target, like when you're playing darts or shooting a basketball. But the more common meaning in everyday conversation is to try to achieve something or to have a goal. When you aim at something, you're working toward it. You might hear something like, "I'm aiming at getting a promotion this year." This means the person is working hard to get promoted. People often say, "We're aiming at opening our new store by December." This shows they have a clear goal and a timeline they want to meet. Number 3, allow for. This means to consider something that might happen or to make space or time for something unexpected. When you allow for something, you're being prepared and thinking ahead. It's like making room in your plans for things that could go wrong or take longer than expected. For example, when you're planning a road trip, you should allow for traffic delays. This means you should expect that traffic might slow you down and plan extra time. Here's another one. The recipe says it takes 30 minutes, but you should allow for extra time if you're cooking for the first time. You're being smart by expecting it might take longer than the recipe says. Number 4, allow of. Now, this phrasal verb is quite formal and not used very often in everyday conversation, but you might see it in writing or formal speech. It means to make something possible or to permit something to happen. It's usually used in more serious or academic contexts. You might hear something like, "The situation doesn't allow of any delay." This means the situation is so urgent that there's no time to wait. People often say in formal writing, "The evidence allows of only one conclusion." This means the evidence is so clear that there's only one possible answer. Now, before we continue with our next phrasal verbs, I have a small favor to ask. If you're finding this lesson helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us create more content like this for English learners like you. We work hard to make these videos clear and useful, and your support means the world to us. Plus, we post new English lessons every single day, so you don't want to miss out. All right, let's keep going with our phrasal verbs. Number 5, angle for. This means to try to get something in an indirect or clever way. When someone is angling for something, they're not asking directly. Instead, they're dropping hints or trying to influence the situation so they can get what they want. It's like fishing, where you use bait and wait patiently. For example, "I think Sarah is angling for a raise. She keeps talking about how much work she's doing." Sarah isn't directly asking for more money, but she's trying to make her boss notice her hard work. Here's another one. "He's been angling for an invitation to the party all week." This person really wants to go to the party, but instead of asking directly, he's hoping someone will invite him. Number 6, answer. Wait, you might be thinking, "Emily, I already know the word answer." But as a phrasal verb, answer takes on a slightly different meaning. It means to respond to something like a phone call, a door knock, or even an advertisement. It's about responding to some kind of call or request for attention. You might hear something like, "Can you answer the door? I think someone's here." This is asking someone to go see who's knocking or ringing the doorbell. People often say, "I saw your job posting online and I'm calling to answer your ad." This means they're responding to a job advertisement they saw. Number 7, answer for. This means to be responsible for something, especially something bad that happened. When you answer for something, you have to explain your actions or accept the consequences. It's often used when someone has done something wrong and needs to take responsibility. For example, if you break the window, you'll have to answer for it. This means you'll be responsible for fixing or paying for the damage. Here's another one. The manager will have to answer for the company's poor performance this quarter. The manager will need to explain why the business didn't do well and probably face some consequences. Number 8, argue down. This means to defeat someone in an argument by talking more or presenting better points. When you argue someone down, you win the debate by being more persuasive or persistent. It's like overwhelming them with your reasoning until they give up or agree with you. You might hear something like, "She tried to argue me down, but I knew I was right about the price." This means someone tried to convince the speaker to accept a lower price, but the speaker stood firm. People often say, "Don't let them argue you down if you know you deserve that salary." This is advice to stay confident in negotiations and not let others convince you to accept less than you're worth. Number 9, argue out. This means to discuss something thoroughly until you reach a conclusion or solve a problem. When people argue something out, they talk about all the details and different viewpoints until they find an answer or make a decision. It's more about working through a problem together than having a fight. For example, let's sit down and argue this out calmly. This means let's discuss this problem completely until we find a solution. Here's another one. The committee spent 3 hours arguing out the details of the new policy. They discussed every aspect of the policy until they agreed on all the details. Number 10, ask about. This simply means to request information about someone or something. When you ask about something, you want to learn more or get details. It's one of the most useful phrasal verbs because we're always asking for information in daily life. You might hear something like, "I called the restaurant to ask about their hours." This person wanted to know what time the restaurant opens and closes. People often say, "She asked about you yesterday. She wanted to know how you're doing." Someone was curious about your well-being and asked for information about you. Now that we've covered all 10 phrasal verbs, let me give you some advice on how to remember and use them. First, don't try to memorize them all at once. Pick 2 or 3 that seem most useful to you and practice using them this week. Try to use them in conversations or even just think of sentences in your head. Second, pay attention to how native speakers use these phrasal verbs in movies, TV shows, and conversations. The more you hear them in context, the more natural they'll become for you. Context is everything when it comes to really understanding phrasal verbs. Third, remember that phrasal verbs are what make your English sound more natural and fluent. Native speakers use them constantly, so learning them will help you understand others better and express yourself more like a native speaker. And finally, be patient with yourself. Phrasal verbs take time to feel comfortable with, and that's completely normal. Every English learner goes through this process. The most important thing is to keep practicing and stay curious about the language. I hope today's lesson was helpful for you. Remember, these phrasal verbs will make your English sound much more natural and help you communicate more effectively with native speakers. Practice using them and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with other English learners who might find it useful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about which phrasal verb you found most interesting or challenging. And don't forget to subscribe, because we post new English lessons every single day to help you improve your skills. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Keep practicing and remember, you're doing great.